technology issue.
Yeah, that's you. Did you get a haircut?
I did. I got one just like Jim. See, I got a Jim haircut.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to reconvene the meeting of the Board of Selectmen for June 5th, 2019. We met earlier at 5:30 in a non-public under RSA 91A32B. And before we get going on tonight here, we're going to have a little change in the agenda of what we're going to do here. On your pages there, that the first number 6 that's listed in there, the town manager hiring process, we're going to give you guys a quick update where we're at and everything here. I'm going to turn over to Linda here in just a second. I just want to say that we started this process back in the early part of the year when Linda was chairman, and then in March when we reconfigured the board here for the chair and stuff like that. We'd asked her to continue on with the lead on the town manager hunt, which she gladly accepted for us. So I'm going to turn this over to Linda now to give you folks an update and everything on our town manager process.
Thanks, Brad. I'd like to review the town manager search. As of February 22nd, 2019, the Wolfeboro town manager position became vacant. The board decided to do a search instead of hiring a search firm. Beginning the week of March 18, town manager's position was advertised in the Union Leader, Concord Monitor, Granite State News, town website, town's Facebook pages, LinkedIn, New Hampshire Municipal Association website, and the ICMA website. The board received 34 applications, 19 from New Hampshire, 1 from Maine, 2 from Massachusetts, and 10 from other states, and 2 from out of the country. And there were 8 candidates from Wolfeboro. On April 17th, the board cut the candidate pool down to 16. The 16 applicants were sent 5 essay questions that dealt with leadership, management, communication styles, keeping Wolfeboro's charm as a resort town while moving the town forward with technology, and budget-related questions. The interview process included 3 panels. 2 panels were made up of 2 staff members and 4 community members, and the 3rd panel included 3 selectmen who were not overseeing one of the community staff panels. The interview panelists were Bob Tuffer, Robert Brennan, Tim Cronin, Greg Rourke Jr., Carrie Duran, Corinne Ferguson, Stan Sobey, Mary DeVries, Ron Dempsey, Harry Traveris, Barry Muccio, and Christine Collins. For a good reason, one of the candidates could not make the May 15th interviews, so the candidate was interviewed by the interview panelists and the board on May 21st. Based on the panelists' recommendations and each board member's choices, the board brought back 3 highly qualified candidates for a second interview. The second interviews took place on May 21st and 22nd. After the second interviews, the board discussed each candidate's ranking from each interview panel and each board member's pros and cons from the first and second interviews. On Thursday, May 23rd, the board presented James Pinio, Wolfeboro's fire chief and acting town manager, with a conditional offer of employment to become Wolfeboro's next town manager, and he signed the conditional offer. The Board of Selectmen is pleased to announce that James S. Pinio has been hired as Wolfeboro's town manager. Jim has a BS degree in Applied Studies, Public Service Management, and a master's in leadership from Granite State College. Before coming to Wolfeboro, he was a captain and an AEMT in the Littleton Fire Department. He is a staff instructor for New Hampshire's Department of Safety Bureau of FST and EMS. He was hired as Wolfeboro's Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director in 2016. In December of 2018, the board asked Jim if he would become the acting town manager until the board could hire a new manager. Jim will serve as Wolfeboro's fire chief and town manager until such time as a new fire chief can be hired.
Thank you, Linda. Dave Bowers, did you want to make a comment?
I just want to second, in behalf of myself and the Board of Selectmen, that this has been a very intense process, much more intense than any one I've ever gone through. And we were very conscious of public input and asked people to volunteer to be on the committees. And I believe that our choice, the ultimate choice, which was based upon the citizens and the board, was a good one. And I congratulate Linda for working overtime as chair of this.
Thank you, Dave. Now, at this time, I'm not going to open up for public input, but I will allow anyone who wanted to ask a question about the process that we just explained, strictly on the town manager hiring process. So I don't know if the press has any questions they'd like to ask now while they're bubbling, or you can ask later on too. So could you come up to the mic for this one? We don't do something like this every day, so. I think that's on. Switch on top. Yep. There you go.
Okay. Simple question. Okay, so congratulations. Thank you. And so your employment is set, but you're going to wait until another chief is in place, right?
I have a time frame to have a new fire chief in place if everything goes well the last week in October, so the new fire chief can be on board for the budgetary process.
Okay, so you're anticipating by the last week in October.
That's what my goal is, to
That's
have
what
the
your
new
goal
person
is.
on board.
Right, you don't have absolute control over all those things. but
Correct.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any questions or comments about this part? Okay. Thank you, and also on behalf of the board, congratulations, Jim, and welcome.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to rolling up the sleeves and getting worked with the staff.
Okay. All right, next thing on the agenda, we have a reason for non-public session this evening, I believe,
We do.
under RSA 91A32B.
Correct.
Okay. Next on agenda is approval of the minutes for May 21st. Do we have any comments or changes? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I wrote them, so I don't think I should make the motion.
I'll move we approve the minutes of May 21, May 22.
We're just doing the 21st right now.
Move we approve the minutes of May 21, 2019.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Now minutes of May 22nd.
I have a change. It's on page 2, and it is the motion, and we had trouble with the notice, so I need to make a few corrections here. It is the fourth line down. It should read August 17th through 18th. Right? And then September 7th and 8th. And that's the only changes I have.
Okay. Any other changes or comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion on the minutes for May 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain, I wasn't here.
And one abstention. All right, we have some public hearings here tonight. The first one I read in is the Wolfeboro Parks and Recreation and New Hampshire Lakes Region Pickleball Club to host a pickleball tournament at the Fossfield Tennis Courts at Fossfield on September 7th and 8th, 2019, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. There's somebody here to speak to that?
My name is John Forno. I'm a resident of Wolfeboro, and I am one of the 5 members of the board of directors of our nonprofit New Hampshire Lakes Region Pickleball Club. And as you may know, we've arranged or helped run so far 4 annual tournaments in Wolfeboro. Last year we had a very successful tournament to the point where we had over 110 players. Wow. We had 65 teams. We had over 250 games that were played on the weekend last year, right around the same time last year. And we'd like to continue. And we feel as though it brings quite a bit of benefit to the town. The town receives revenues from the people who come and spend money. People come from all over the country now. We're basically becoming noticed by the pickleball community across the nation. And we feel as though this is not, it's something that we think we can continue with and possibly expand if we have the facilities. So we're looking for approval of I believe the temporary outdoor event.
Temporary event, yep.
An event permit.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'll open up the public hearing. Does anybody in the public have any questions or comments about this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Board members, any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a couple questions and comments. First, we're going to need a insurance policy.
Yes, last year we provided one via Avery Insurance.
Okay.
And
We
that-
just need that before we can issue the permit. The other thing I wanted to tell you, and you could hear the changes I made that weekend, September 17th and 18th, there is also going to be a water ski tournament. And so we may have some issue with parking.
Yes.
So you may want to send out maps so people know
Yes.
where our
Yeah.
parking is, and that you may need to give more options because there is also a ski tournament.
Yeah, I believe
going
that we can issue maps and have them distributed online and have everyone be aware that parking will be at a premium at that location.
on. Thank you.
And hopefully we can get more people to carpool. Sometimes whole families come to watch. I mean, it becomes a very, very large spectacle event for the players as well as the families.
That's pretty cool.
So we'll try to control the parking
I
situation.
just wanted to bring that to attention because, when 2 big events, I
Right.
know it, but they had one the 7th and 8th also. Yeah.
Oh, it's
no,
the same
Same
weekend. Yeah.
Same weekend.
day,
Yeah.
yeah, in September.
Well, we'll be
That's
sure
why I'm
to,
making the comment.
We'll be sure to mention
Just
that.
we're gonna need to make sure, and we need to tell them that we
Yeah.
give the people many options of where they can go to park.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to understand.
We understand that we have a responsibility to keep the situation controllable.
Keep everybody healthy.
Yeah.
Would you like a motion?
Yeah, any other questions or comments?
I'll make a motion that Wolfeboro Parks and Recreation and New Hampshire Lakes Region Pickleball Club to host a pickleball tournament at the Fossfield Tennis Courts at Fossfield on September 7th and 8th, 2019, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. under permit number 1938.
We have
Second that.
a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? You're all set?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next public hearing we have is the Wolfeboro Fire Rescue and Police Department to co-host the annual Public Safety Building Open House on Saturday, June 29th, 2019, from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. for setup and cleanup at 251 South Main Street. Chief.
Hi, how you doing? I'm Chief Dean Rondo, and I'm here to talk about the open house. So this is the same as we do every year. There'll be plenty of free food, some static displays. We'll have K9 rigs down there. We're hoping to have the fire marshals K-9 down for some demonstrations. And what are your questions, if any?
I'll open up the public hearing first. Anybody in the public have any questions or comments about this event? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Board members, any questions, comments?
My only comment is I bring my grandkids every year. They enjoy it tremendously.
And you can come dressed as your favorite pirate.
I'm dressed as what? What did you say we can come dressed as?
Your favorite pirate.
Pirate.
I see. Thank you.
Do you want me to stay up here, Mr. Chairman, and also do the veterans count, or the veterans count 5K run?
We'll take these in order first. We've still got to vote on this one here. Do we have a motion on this one?
I move that Wolfeboro Fire and Rescue and the Police Department be given the okay to co-host the annual Public Safety Building Open House on Saturday, June 29th, 2019, from 12 to 2, 10 to 3 for setup and cleanup at 251 South Main Street, permit number 1940.
Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion, a second on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next item, public hearing, is the Hospital and Community Aid Association, Inc., to hold spring fundraising yard sale at 65 Pine Hill Road from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the following dates: May 31st, June 1st, June 7th and 8th, June 14th and 15th, and June 21st, 22nd, all of 2019. We have somebody here to speak to this?
I'm Jane Wass from the Hospital and Community Aid Street Fair Association, and we are having our annual spring fundraiser. You can eliminate May 31st and June 1st. That's gone by. But for the next 3 weeks, and from all donated items, and of course, as everyone knows, we're all volunteers. My husband and I have volunteered to do the street fair, plus the barn sales and the barn for 19 years now. So, not only do we benefit Huggins Hospital, but Back Bay Rehab, and also we reach out to the community now, which is great. One thing I wanted to mention, we have, for 19 years, never sent our medical equipment over to Brewster Field to go into dumpsters. We keep it at the barn, and all medical equipment is free to anyone, anywhere, in any state. We have a great supply of medical equipment right now, and much of it is new. So I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. I'll open up the public hearing. Anybody have any questions or comments on this event? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Board members?
Yes, I have one, and I'm sure you follow this, but I'll just read it because it's on the application. Please ensure compliance with the New Hampshire State Fire Code and contact the fire rescue with any questions.
Right. And I should mention, I don't know if anybody can see, but we just had these beautiful carriage and sleighs donated, 1870s, completely restored, which we're really excited about, which will not go to the fair. We'll have buyers for them. But one is valued at $5,000, one is valued at $4,000, so we're pretty excited. Thank you.
You're a cool person.
Okay. We have a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion to grant a permit to the Hospital and Community Aid Association, Inc. to hold a spring fundraiser yard sales at 65 Pine Hill Road from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on the following dates: May 31st, June 1st, June 7th and 8th, June 14th and 15th, June 21st and 22nd. It'll be permit 1941.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor. Any discussion?
The pictures.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. You're all set, Jen.
Anybody want to see those pictures?
Yeah, I saw those. She showed them to me earlier there.
Show them on TV.
Did they pick the pictures up?
What?
Hold it off so we can.
Hold them up.
Can you zoom in? I mean, is this a...
I don't
You
know if they're
do
doing
it.
I was going to get the next one going while you do it.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right, there we go. Am I supposed to do, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do this? Here, let me not, you don't want to see my face.
Okay, I'll open up the next public hearing, the Veterans Count, Easter Seals, New Hampshire, to host a nonprofit fundraising event, 5K run at 399 Center Street on August 10th, 2019, from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. Chief.
So this has become an annual event, and I'm happy to say that I am a board member of Veterans Count, Division of Easter Seals, and this event sponsors veterans throughout the state of New Hampshire, and it falls in, if you will, where the VA can't. So it supplements VA coverage and care for our men and women in uniform, or men and women who are no longer in uniform, and who are in need of medical services or other types of service, to include job training. So, as you know, I'm soft on veterans. I want to do everything I can to help them. This is a great event, and after you get through dressing up as a pirate and coming down to visit us at the open house, you can come and run on the 10th of August in the 5K. There's two courses, one for what I call the gazelles. All right, so you start down, run from basically the boat museum, and then as soon as you hit the Bridge Falls path, you're going to bang a left. And that's the run for time. It's like a trail run. And then the right is for the casual run walkers who just want to take a casual stroll for 5K and come on back, and then take a dip in at Albee Beach, right? That's the intent. So I think you have all the information there. You have the map, the sketch map. You've got the parking and other facilities laid out, and then you have our insurance certificate. What are your questions?
I'll open up the public hearing. Anybody from the public have any questions or comments on this event? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Board members?
Yeah, I just have one. Since it's stamped on the thing here, you may be required to have a sign permit. If you
May be required to have what?
to have a sign permit. So
Sign permit.
Sign
a
permit.
temporary sign permit.
Okay.
So you can check with the code officer whether you need it or not, or you're going to put any signs up.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Fair enough.
I'll make a motion on this one. I'll make a motion to approve the temporary event permit for the Veterans Count, Easter Seals, New Hampshire, to host a nonprofit fundraising event, 5K run at 399 Center Street on August 10th, 2019, from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. Permit number 1942.
Second.
Motion is second on the floor. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
You're all set?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the Dow Realty Group and the Wolfeboro Nursery School to host the 1K Endurance Challenge at 136 Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, on June 22nd, 2019, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Have anybody here? There we go.
Hi. I'm here to represent Morgan Coleman on behalf of Dow Realty. My name's Allie. I'm the director of the Wolfeboro Nursery School, and we want to hold the 1K event to support our nursery school. We would use the money that we raise to offer tuition assistance for children in the town to attend. And so it's a family event where parents can walk with their children or anybody, and we're going to start at Keller Williams and then walk down to Nolan's and then kind of do a raffle and then support local businesses with little gift certificates to restaurants and t-shirts, and that's about it.
Sounds good. I'll open up the public hearing. Anybody in the audience have any questions or comments? Seeing none, board members?
I have the same little stamp on it. You may be required, if you put out any signs, to get a temporary sign
They need
permit.
a sign.
Could I have a motion on this one?
I'd like to move to approve a temporary event permit to the Dow Realty Group and the Wolfeboro Nursery School to host the 1K Endurance Challenge at 136 Main Street, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, on June 22nd, 2019, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is second on the floor. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All set. Next on our agenda is a bulk vote, which includes the weekly manifest for May 24th and 31st, current use application, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 abatements and 5 intent to cut wood and timbers and 2 warrants and a raffle permit.
I'll move to accept the bulk vote.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, we have a few appointments to do. First one being an appointment of Alana Albee to the Wolfeboro Economic Development Committee as an alternate member. Do we want to just have a motion? Do we want to, if Alana wants to spep to us at all, or?
Alana doesn't want to say.
I think she'd prefer to speak to us on other matters.
Okay. Yep.
I'll make a motion to appoint Alana Albee to the Economic Development Committee, the term will expire on voting day 2021.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Alana.
Congratulations.
I have another appointment to appoint Maggie Steer to the Wolfeboro Heritage Commission to a term that would be expiring on town voting day of 2022.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next one is also for the Wolfeboro Heritage Commission to appoint Suzanne Ryan to the commission for a term that expires on town voting day of 2022. We have a motion on this one?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Next one is the Wolfeboro Heritage Commission to appoint Cindy Melanson to a term that expires on town voting day of 2022. We have a motion on this one.
So moved.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We also have one that we had done at a previous meeting. We had the wrong date on the expiration, so we'll redo this one. It's to appoint Deborah Long-Smith to as an alternate to the Wolfeboro Library Board of Trustees to a term which expires July 31st, 2019.
So moved.
Motion has been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Done for the town manager hiring process. Now going to new business. First one on the agenda is the commercial vessel landing permit for the dive. We have somebody here to speak to this. Somebody here to present this one? Board members, do we want a discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman, if they haven't showed up, we asked for a calendar of times they were going to come in that I would like to deny this permit.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I would echo those sentiments. We've reached out to them numerous times with limited to no response, and at this point, I think this is the prudent thing to do.
I'm in the same space. I think the agreement we had last time, whenever the last time was, a couple of meetings back, is there was going to be I think an opportunity for them to tell us when they wanted to land. There was a concern raised by one of our other, by the Wolfeboro Inn, that they had landing things, and we were going to kind of build a little calendar. The Wolfeboro Inn has provided the calendar. They haven't. I'm with the rest of my colleagues, at least those who've spoken thus far. I don't think we should proceed with this permit.
Yeah, I agree too. Just to remember that meeting too, where they were asked to provide a schedule, and the gentleman here agreed to do that.
Yep.
He obviously hasn't done that. Hasn't shown up here tonight either. So I will second the motion that Linda made to deny this permit. Any further discussion?
What was the motion?
To deny the permit.
Deny, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next item is the Libby Museum L-chip grant application.
Mr. Chairman, in your
Where you going?
packets this evening, you will see a schedule of LCHIP grant thresholds. You'll also see within there a selectman's brief from the director of the Libby. You will also see the prospectus that was provided to us regarding the building on the Libby, the construction of the Libby, which has a very generous financial package to help offset construction costs. And at this point, I would like to hand it over to the director of the Libby.
Thank you very much for inviting me here this evening. My objective is to give a brief update on the Libby Museum and ask for the endorsement of the Selectmen to go forward with an L-chip state application for $350,000. As you know, L-chip's the largest public source of funding for preservation grants. As we know, they help the town hall. Following the March 2019 warrant article passed to begin the feasibility on the best option for restoring and expansion of the Libby, an RFP was issued and Alba Architects was contracted. Alba began detailed assessment of the building just this past Sunday and are working hard to hit the deadlines for information needed for the L-chip application on June 28th at noon. Important to submit to L-chip now. It's very important because the outcome only comes in November, October-November time, because the impact of the harsh weather on the building has been quite severe over past months. We've had early indications of some structural shifting in the foundation, worsening leaks along the sills, and serious decay and infestation in the eaves. It's far worse than was expected due to, in part, to the rain and the long winter we had. Engineers will further assess on Monday the extent of the foundation and issue, and also we had a mildew assessment that will be completed in the next 7 days. So we're running out of time to save this historic building, and as you know, it's on the National Register of Historic Places. It's been 9.5 years since the last code and life safety assessment of the building that recommended restoration, and 60+ years in town stewardship. For a 107-year-old building without heat and insulation, it's doing pretty well, but the weather's taken its toll. This is an opportunity for considerable resources from L-chip. We also have a earmarked potential grant from the Biber Foundation, funds being raised by the Friends of the Libby, and the 2018 bequest from Betty Schroth of $118,000. So these opportunities may not exist in the future, so we would like to move forward now on this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alana. Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for us to move forward and get some funding from L-chip. I mean, Alana kind of stated and heard here that, you know, this building and this use is kind of right up the alley for what L-chip likes to do and stuff. So it's a great opportunity for the town, and I personally support this 100%. So, board members have any comments or questions?
I'm with you, Brad. I support this 100%. It's a wonderful museum, and we need to do everything to keep the displays and also the building itself. So I'm 100% behind this.
Hey, look, this is we have town treasures, and we should either protect them, preserve them, or we should tear them down, and I don't think we want to tear them down. So this one, I think, is a smart thing to do. It's overdue, so I'm supportive of it.
Thank you.
Dave, do you have any comments?
I want to make a comment about being
You do that.
you all did. You want to make you in favor?
Well, I'm in favor of it, yes. Good idea. I've been a fan of the Living Museum since day one, as you know.
Yes, thank you.
Could I just, before the motion?
Sure.
Yeah, so before I read the agreement and pledge gift, so this is ultimately going to go before the taxpayers, and there's going to be an ask by the taxpayers of how much is it going to cost the town, and how much are we going to be, I'm not going to say on the hook for, but I just did. How much are we going to be, liable for this? And I think it's really important, because you're early on now in this process. It's really important to have a lot of clarity around that, because, Jim and I had a brief chat today. I think our budgets are going to get a lot of scrutiny. God bless you for raising this kind of money. It's super that we have these kinds of benefactors who want to help us. But the budget will be something I think taxpayers are going to take a good, hard look at. And so, crank the pencil sharp and make sure that, you do the best you can understanding revenues, costs, donations, and ongoing stuff. Okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
I think one of the key things that Alana brought up too is the fact that, this has been around for 107 years now. And, first probably 60, 70 years, everything was just going hunky-dory all through there. But things age and stuff, and some of these specimens and exhibits in there that, back in the day, Dr. Libby had was pretty much ahead of his time on how he did all this stuff. But 107 years of sitting out there takes its toll after time. So we really do need to think about moving forward and really preserving this for the town. So.
And and if we are able to get a grant for $350,000,
that would be a help.
That's a big help to the
huge.
taxpayer.
That would be a help.
Yeah.
It's a stretch. The top limit is $500,000. They never give out $500 million, but we're ahead of the game because we already have the National Register. We're already on the National Register, and also Maggie Steer is advising us on our application. She used to be part of that commission.
Well, the good news is you're not
Township
afraid to
application.
ask. You're going for it, and I think that's exactly.
right.
You just, we could sit around and just have problem admiration on how bad things are, but you just decided to go for it, and I give you a lot of credit for that.
Thank you.
I think we should probably make a motion to put our support behind the application process here for Alana to move forward with the grant application to LCHIP.
I've moved that the Board of Selectmen supports the application of LCHIP.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That work for you, Alana?
Thanks.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, next up is the 2020 Capital Improvement Program discussion.
Good evening, members of the board. Matt Sullivan, Planning Director. This is an annual process that we go through to review the Board of Selectmen's goals for the 10-year CIP plan, which will begin in just a few months. This year we're going to be doing things a little bit differently, though. We're actually going to have sort of a discussion this evening and then hopefully bring this back to the board for your approval or adoption at what I think will be the June 19th meeting of the board. I wanted to start by just sort of reviewing what the existing goals are that were set last year. As you can see in the memo that has been prepared, there were 14 of these. And then I also want to sort of start the conversation a little bit before I get your feedback by providing a few potential options that you might want to include in some revisions to the goals moving forward from this year's. But quickly for the members of the public, just to review the 14 that are here. Number one, to have all their department heads spread projects over 10 years, and where the asset management plans are available that the board has prioritized to base project requests on them. Number two, new capital projects submission should be, whenever possible, programmed into the outer years of the CIP. So again, this is a 10-year plan. Sometimes when project requests are not fully scoped out or the costs aren't fully available, we'd like to see those projects in the outer years of the CIP. Number three, to continue to phase larger projects into smaller, more digestible or manageable pieces, and to really give consideration for natural division points in those processes. And I think that's something the town has done well to date. Number four, to encourage the use of capital reserve accounts. Again, another thing the town has done well as a method to spread the cost of projects over multiple years, and in some cases, use those capital reserves as really savings accounts for some of these larger projects. Number five, to look at developing smaller projects into yearly appropriations rather than every other year. The example given here is sidewalk projects. This is, again, something that's been done well, but something that the board had prioritized in the past. Number six, to propose no more than one building project per year. And I think this is really meant to be major building projects, and that's what it says here. We have had smaller building projects occur in a 1 year period, but really no major projects such as the library in 1 year. Number 7, to plan departmental projects on the assumption that the public safety building will be constructed or at least sought for funding in 2022. Number 8, to maintain a focus on achieving and keeping ADA compliance at all town facilities based principally on the issues that obviously existed before. I think significant improvements have been made, and as you can see from our sidewalk infrastructure, we're making some improvements even now to increase our ADA accessibility around town. Number 9, to maintain funding for town infrastructure upgrades, and I do have a recommendation here that I'll come back to in a few minutes. Number 10, to focus on building maintenance and repair of town facilities based on asset management plans. So when we are doing updates to our buildings or renovations or improvements, we want to really focus on having asset management plans available so we know when those changes are going to or when those requests are going to happen, so they can be as predictable as possible and so that we can understand how to best manage our building maintenance capital reserve. Number 11, to base the Wolfeboro Bay dock repairs and upgrades on the tie and bond asset management plan, which was made available, I believe, in 2017 now, just 2 years ago. Number 12, to base the Wolfeboro dock expansion on the Town Dock Committee's expansion design, which was done and formalized by tie and bond at the end of 2018. Number 13, to consider the future reuse of the electric generation building on Laner Street, where we actually do have some progress to report here and that we're working on a phase 1 environmental assessment for this building. And are beginning to work a little more on that, although I think this is probably something that should remain in the goals. And then finally, number 14, this is something that was added by the Board of Selectmen in 2018, and that's to evaluate the need for a new community center. Recognizing fully that this may be an out-year project, there's really an interest in having that goal represented to the CIP should the project request be submitted to them. So those are the 14 goals or guidelines that were proposed by the Board of Selectmen last year. A few food for thought items, if you will, that aren't specifically scoped right now or fully written. I think one thing that may be not clear in here that we've tried to incorporate into the form is that we want to prioritize projects that, although they may be large capital projects, can clearly show a payback or a decrease or stabilization of long-term operations and maintenance costs. That's something that we've asked for in our capital project form submission and even in our capital outlay submission as well. It's something that department heads struggle with a lot, but I think we really want to offer that if you are able to show long-term O&M decrease or stabilization, you may be moved up the priority list or your project may rise to the top of the pile. I think that's something we really want department heads to focus on, so you may consider a goal to that effect. One thing that the town and department heads have done well in the past is using shared funding sources, whether that be private funding, nonprofits, grant funding, other funding. I think that might be well stated in a goal that's actually included here. Maybe it's to prioritize projects that use a variety of funding sources, whether it be private, public, or grant funded. I think that might be something to indicate. I think one thing we're hearing already in the Libby Museum tonight is that when grant funds become available, those projects potentially become much more feasible for the community to execute. And I think we should represent that in the guidelines. A few topic-specific items. Water resources are obviously a priority right now. I'm not sure if the board is interested in prioritizing projects involving water resources, whether particularly drinking water and obviously our stormwater as well. There's a critical concern there. I'm not sure if you want to have a goal or guideline specifically assigned to that. An additional item that's come up at the Energy Committee is that projects that decrease energy costs, or at least stabilize them if there are additions planned to different facilities, those might be something that you want to prioritize. So whether you'd actually like to put in a topic-specific goal stating that projects that decrease energy, or at least look at energy savings, those projects might be of a higher priority than some of the others that are in there. So you might want to have a goal set for that. One minor amendment to number 9 as listed here, the road infrastructure upgrades. I think it would be important to acknowledge the fact that Public Works Director Dave Ford has completed the RSMS and that we really want to base our road upgrade schedule on that management plan, which is yet another asset management plan, but I think it would be important to include that reference within this goal if you choose to maintain it. I also wanted to point out this evening that there have been other concerns raised, principally through the wrap-up meeting of the CIP, which I believe was in January of this year, more on the administrative side of the CIP process. Every year we try to improve it. We try to have better forms available, better documentation, be more timely. We obviously had some issues delivering the CIP to the Budget Committee of the Board of Selectmen last year. I can promise you this evening that will not be an issue this year. We've set out a strategy that we're confident we can execute. So those administrative issues will be handled internally. With that, just a few ideas for you to consider. Happy to listen to discussion tonight and hopefully collect some input so I can revise these, bring these back to you at your June 19th meeting. You might consider adopting them so that we can begin the CIP process in July and August of this year.
Is this on our town internet? Or maybe it should be, because that way people can feed into it. I think it's probably too long to put in the newspaper, but it's a good list. It's a good bullet list that someone can say, hey, I really want to prioritize this because we do have a lot of public input.
Yeah, and one thing I'd offer as well is we actually do still have a vacancy on our Capital Improvement Program Committee for a citizen-at-large member. So if anyone's really interested in the capital project planning process, they certainly could actually join the committee and be part of actually determining what the priorities are, particularly for next year and then in our remaining 9 years of the plan. But yeah, I mean, I think that generally this board has had a good sense of what the capital project priorities should be. Certainly, if members of the public have specific concerns, I would ask that they either submit them to you or submit them to me, and I can make them available to the CIP and yourselves as well. But generally, I think the list that exists does do a good job of representing what our larger capital project priorities are.
I just have one in terms of the energy. You know, you're saying, well, if you take energy or decrease energy, you'll put it as a priority. I'd like to make the statement they need to look at in decreasing the energy. That's my first one. The other one, when we talk about the road MS, which this is this big document here, is that I want it based on that, but I also want it phased in. There's no way in 1 year we're going to be able to increase the appropriation for roads based on this, and so we're going to need to, there needs to be some work on that. And mine, just from being on the committee, is that I want the department heads to fill out the full request forms. And that means the town manager's signature is on it, and that's
I fully agree.
That's us, you know, as a board saying we want that.
Absolutely.
So those are my couple. I don't know who else has some.
I got a few.
Go ahead, Paul.
So Matt, thanks for doing this again. I second Linda's comment on energy. That brings us to a conversation in our town that says we should start looking across our departments for opportunities to make investments and to get some returns on those investments. That's a smart thing to do. I believe we need to also, and I task our town manager, we need a systems and technology view in our town. It's going to cost us some capital. We have, again, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but when I hear somebody talk about the same problem more than twice, I call it problem admiration. I don't like problem admiration. We have some systems and technology issues we need to address, whether it be in the way in which we generate a bill, whether in the way, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how we do that maybe this year, but we should start thinking about kind of a S&T, systems and technologies view, and find it into CIP. We may not get it done this year, but I think it's important. I think we need to ask our new finance person to go into our systems and find things that may be what I would call cleanup items, that we need to kind of top off some things that we may find need to get topped off. And it may not even come to a CIP level. It may be a one-time appropriation, but I think we need to check the box that we've done that. And then the last one, which I think is probably the most important, is these are a lot of projects out there, and a lot of department heads, thrash around trying to get these projects done. I really think it's important for the finance operation to tell us or help us think through what is the debt carrying capacity of this town. I think it's important for us to know, like anything, if you're going to buy a house, you're going to buy a car, you're going to have to you got to understand whether you can carry the debt. And I think it's important for us to have that conversation and get some boundaries so that we don't set our town departments off trying to compete for projects that there's no possible way we could do. So I think that's an important one for us to think about. More operational things than items for the CIP, but I think those are things we should think about.
Well, I think if you're looking at debt carrying capacity, maybe once that we have that amount, that is the job of the town manager and
Right.
the department head to
Right.
take care of that and decide which projects can go.
That's right.
And that information is part of what goes to the CIP.
That's right.
I think one of the main problems they've had, at least in the past 3 or 4 years, maybe further, is the road budget. The road budget seems to be a focal point for anyone who doesn't want tax increases, but it's also, as a selectman, I had 2 of them this week where people say, can you please improve our roads? And I was talking to someone over the weekend from Springfield Point, and I said, well, send this and I'll send it to Dave Ford and to Matt, but I said, there's a queue or a line here, and we have many more requests than we have budget, but I really think that seeing we have a $27 million budget and roads are essential, that the road, the 800,000 or whatever it happens to be at the moment, maybe it should be 1.2 million or something, but because costs have increased, but the allotment hasn't, which means we have to have reduced services, and I don't think the average townsperson wants reduced services.
I think one other thing I'd add onto this, you had mentioned, Matt, too, about stormwater management and those type of things too. I think that should kind of be part of this also, because of what appeared last summer in Winter Harbor with the cyanobacteria bloom. I know Dave's been working hard trying to get a handle on it up in that area. Got some projects to do up on the up off Forest Road and down off of North Main Street there to help alleviate some of that. But I think that needs to be on the forefront here, because the lake is really what makes our town what it is here. So we really need to take care of that, and I think we really need to start thinking long and hard about what's affecting the lake and how we can preserve it as long as we can. So.
Would it be best if I bring a track changes version of this back to the board for your meeting on June 19th, based on what I'm hearing this evening and maybe some of those thoughts that I contributed at the beginning, and then we can have a full discussion and then decide that evening on whether you want to proceed? Is that the best way to move forward, or
can you send them out a little bit earlier so we have
send them out tomorrow if you'd like? Yeah, these are pretty minor changes.
It gives us an opportunity to at least to have a conversation with you and get it worded, because I'd like to get these out and decide on the June 19th.
Yep,
that would be helpful.
Yep, I can pass these along before the end of the week this week, and then we can have the full discussion on the 19th. One question I do want to ask, is there anything that you see here that you feel no longer applies moving forward? Is there anything that doesn't fit?
Well, I don't know if it's a not fit. I just ask, it's prescriptive.
Yep, that's a good point.
And based upon all the discussion we just had, it kind of doesn't fit. And that is, I know our blessed chief and our fire chief is probably going to have a sharp eye for me, is that we say the public safety building is a 2022 project. That's very prescriptive.
Yeah, and I apologize. I meant to mention that before. I think when we look at these guidelines, they should be very as objective as possible so that all projects can be considered underneath each one of them. The number 7 is one of these things is not like the others, and that's not to say that the project is not important, but it does put the project in a very specific year, and it is a bit out of place. I think the public safety building is a paramount priority as somebody who's involved in that planning process, but I tend to agree that is a bit prescriptive coming from the Board of Selectmen when it comes to CIP.
Well, it just didn't fit with what we were just talking about. We were talking about here's the process and the goals, and then
Well, I think to me, and why we put it there, is to give them an earmark of where we're heading for that building. And it can move from year to year, but as they're looking as department heads on where they're going to put their project, they need to know that that is where it is in the CIP at this particular time. And so it makes me stop and think and saying, okay, do I want to make my project go before it or after it or what? And We did that with the town hall, we did it with the library, we did it here, because it's a big, huge project that will have a large impact. So that's why I think it should be in there. That's where it's targeted for. I think you stop, we're asking them to base their project on the assumption that is the date.
Yeah, the thing to keep in mind too is that this is really a living document. It's, things can change. That could change a year or so either direction. Next year we don't know as we move forward. So, but I agree. I think having that, knowing that's one of the largest ones that we've seen. I don't know. I'd say the RIB was probably right up there, but it's definitely one of the largest projects, single projects we've seen. It's going to have to be funded, so we need to work around that, and I think that's a good idea to have it there so that we know, like if the levy's coming in somewhere, or have something at the rec, up the Abenaki, something like that, that we know we can place them in different places, spots. So I like keeping it like that.
Okay. I just, that's fine. I think, tell us what our carrying capacity is for debt, because that's going to be a very informative discussion, and it may be illuminating. So we probably should know that, because the alternative is we just push it on the tax rate.
Yeah, and I may try
Push
and
whatever it is. I'm not picking on the public safety bill. Whatever we want to do, if we
Sure.
can't carry more debt, we'll just push it up on the tax rate.
And I may try and put in a goal related to having a healthy ratio of debt service to. I may try and put something like that in, because I think that is a priority. We can review it at the next meeting. If we don't want to include it, we don't include it.
Well, the good news is, and Jim has the document, our treasurer attended a conference about this particular issue and came back with Moody's rating service assessments of municipals across, I think, the United States and in New Hampshire, and kind of said, it's either, your debt service can be a function of your general fund, percentage of your general fund, or it can be based upon your assessed value of your town. So, pick your poison. Point being, we should look at that and we should kind of understand whether we're close, over, or under that number. And I think that would be a good place to start.
That's a conversation I think the new town manager and the new finance director are looking.
Delegated over there.
And I don't disagree, there is a spot, but then there is also a spot where we ended up in 2005 when we had a sewer moratorium, water moratorium. So we have to balance the figure with the need and the safety, and that building has a lot of major codes, so we've got some work to do on that.
Sure.
Besides just the debt service. We also have to look at the need and how we address that need, so.
Okay, so I'll send you all a copy of this within the next 2 days, and then I'll come back on the 19th, and hopefully we can have a full discussion.
Thank you, Matt.
That's good.
All right,
Good
thank
job.
you. Thank you.
As usual, good job.
Okay, next discussion we have is petition to pave a section of Beach Pond Road.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Chairman, we've received a petition. I believe Dave Ford is going to speak to this, and then we should be able to attempt to answer any questions which the board may have.
Hi, Dave.
Hello, Dave Ford, Public Works. So, we had 8 or 9 different property owners send letters to the board back in April, and Beach Pond Road is got a lot of sections of pavement and gravel, and mostly gravel as we go out towards Ossipee. The last couple of years, we've had some problems. I think it's always been passable. I think it's always been safe. We've had some pretty rough days, but it is a tough road to take care of because of the hills and the drainage. But when you go from a gravel road to a paved road, that's a huge upgrade, and there's a lot that's entailed with that. We haven't even begun to, we're just trying to get a good handle on what we have now with the report that came out. And the report does give recommendation on how to maintain gravel roads, and that we should be spending more money on gravel roads. So again, this summer, our goal was to specifically on Beach Pond to do some more work up there. But again, as we trimmed the budget hard last year, and we've had a little rough winter, and we had some other challenging issues coming to our budget with regards to mechanical issues with trucks and stuff. So we're going to be lean again this year. So I'm not sure how much good upgrade we'll get with Beach Pond. Back to this petition, though, I don't know how we could respond to it. I said my recommendation is right now is to put on hold And we had talked about having a workshop with the selectmen and talk specifically about the roads and the road service management report that really still in a draft form. So while I do believe that is where we're going to go, it's still draft format. I think we still need to have discussion about affordability. Obviously, we can't go from 800,000 to 1.4 million in 1 year, but also we got to look at what we tell people. They're going to ask where am I on that list? We just say, well, the list only goes 10 years, and you're not on the 10-year list. And that includes us, increasing the budget significantly. So that's one of the problems when you create a list and you start to, and that's the same thing when you just talked about the CIP. Once you talk about affordability, you start saying we're only going to spend so much a year, well, then that's a good message for department heads because, hey, we're never going to do what you're dreaming about because we really shouldn't be wasting our time if we're going to limit ourselves with regards to what we say we can afford. And I think the same thing with regards to roads. We have a huge, the gravel roads are a big issue because we've also had other people request, maybe not as many, up in North Wolfeboro. Starter Road was one, and I think that person backed down once he realized the neighborhood up there is pretty solid against. Right. We did have people call because they knew this petition was going out. I don't know if anyone wrote a letter that they were not in favor of paving Beach Pond Road. So again, the other thing too, if we start heading in a direction, we might want to go out and ask people to find out if you have a consensus or not. Because again, even though there's 8 or 9 people who wrote letters, I'm not sure that's a consensus because we haven't asked the question to everybody. And some people did come specifically say, but I don't think they documented it.
Good question, Dave. You said in your note that you were planning or had a plan to do some drainage and on Beach Pond. Was that in your roads plan for the year?
That was in my budget this year. Okay. To do additional work on that specific road, and as we were cutting back on capital projects, the intent was to do more work there.
And so this would be an increment. This paving would be an increment. You don't have the capacity to do that in this budget year. Physical capacity as well as financial capacity. You're kind of booked, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. And if you did do this, forget about how it gets into the priority. I think you answered the question, but just for the benefit maybe of people who are listening, what you'd really want to do is sit down with all the stakeholders and kind of get a sense as to whether this is something that the community out there wants to have done, and the understanding of what would be done and the consequence of what would be done, right? You want to kind of get the stakeholders in a room and talk it through.
Exactly. I think it's been a little bit of a mystery. How do we make these decisions? And we go year to year because it's been a difficult process to have everyone understand what's going on. It's been very scientific in terms of looking at the roads, which are the worst roads, but we don't always repair the worst roads. There's a lot of things that go into making those decisions. But again, when it comes down to affordability, and when you look at what it would cost to pave, say, a Beach Pond Road or to do other upgrades that everyone's asking for all at once, it's just not possible.
Yeah, I would think, well, first of all, I think I applaud what you're doing because otherwise we're interrupt driven. We just kind of go from one thing to another, and that's not what you want to do, and I've heard you say that many times. Right. Secondly, I think that we got to put these things in a plan and get consensus of people as to whether they think it's a good idea or not. And then we've got to figure out how to fund it. I mean, it's just that hard, but it's just that simple. And I'm kind of supportive of your advice saying we should kind of wait, think, plan, and then before we do. I'm kind of with you on that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dave. It's, as you know, too, going up there to redo these roads, get them ready to pave, if you're talking major construction there, too, you're not just talking about, throwing a little gravel down, throwing some hot top on. These roads are going to be expensive to bring up to a standard to be able to pave and have the pavement last, so. And then, I'm not sure what the right-of-way width is up in there, if we got the 50 feet or not, but some areas it seems kind of narrow, and they did have a comment in here that whatever work we do, that they want to make sure the existing stone walls don't get touched at all. And it's hard to get your drainage improvements and your shoulders you need for pavement and stuff like that, and keep it within what's already there now. It's that's going to be next to impossible. So it's going to be a tough nut to crack up there.
It's going to be huge just to get back, to hold it, to maintain it. It's a big job. To think about paving and all that goes in with that, it's again, it's something that I guess the board should you tell people, hey, we're not considering that right now. We are working on trying to maintain what we have and trying to maintain the gravel roads. There may be certain areas there that drainage improvements in or pavement may be certain sections of it, and that maybe we get into, okay, the worst sections maybe we should pave, because there are some really tough areas that, so maybe that's something we can start working on, but at this point, we haven't even considered it, and I think that these people need to be told that, we got a long ways before we consider paving.
No, I agree with you on that.
I do too.
Yeah, I'm with that, but I would like you to see if you could put together so they know and we as a board know what drainage work you're planning to do up there, because some of these people may respond to us, and I'd like to know that you have something really planned on going on up there and that we can have that. And I think at this point in time, we don't have this on the plan, and we need to find out what we can do to the gravel road first.
Chief?
Thank you, Dave. You okay with that, Jim?
That's perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. Next one is the NHDOT crosswalk and rumble strip discussion.
I think we had a request to have the discussion about this because there was a hearing held in Alton, was it last week?
Yeah, Jim and I attended, and it was on May 29th. The Alton Selectmen had invited New Hampshire DOT to talk about the rumble strips going up Route 28 because they're in the process of doing a paving project. So this is being driven by that. The citizens of Alton, one after another, complained about the noise and how it disrupted their life and sleep, and also was affecting how some of the real estate was unable to be sold along that area. We had 2 state senators and 2 representatives who spoke against the rumble strips. I thought New Hampshire DOT listened and responded by saying they had a new strip called a mumble strip, which is not as deep, it's spread over a longer distance, it's wavy, and makes less noise. But New Hampshire DOT didn't tell us exactly where they were going to do that. They also stated that they don't put rumble or mumble strips on a road that is less than 28 feet and the road has to have a speed limit of 40 miles an hour or greater. The Alton citizens told them they didn't want rumble or mumble strips. They had no map, so I couldn't really tell for sure when they came into Wolfeboro where that line was that they were going to do rumble strips, but it looked to me as if it was going back more to the beginning of the Nick, and I think now it is after Trotting Track, but I couldn't really tell that. So I got up and asked New Hampshire DOT to come to Wolfeboro to have a public hearing, and that's what I'd like the board to do, to not only talk about the rumble strips, but more importantly, the 2 crosswalks in South Wolfeboro that they're going to eliminate. So that's why I wanted in. I wanted to get a vote of the board to invite New Hampshire DOT and have a public hearing and try to address that.
Dave?
The lead editorial in the Union Leader yesterday was that the DOT rumble strip statistics are based on studies done in some highways in Florida or someplace, and the editor said they should go back to the drawing board and do some studies for New Hampshire towns and stop putting in rumble strips. Also, on the subject of crosswalks, I've sent quite a few emails this past week on this. I think the DOT needs to know that we are a small town with 2 commercial districts. We have Clark Plaza, and then we have the Wolfeboro Shopping Center facing each other with the Wright Museum, and we have Dunkin' Donuts and a whole bunch of stuff going on there. That's a commercial district. It's not quite like like an open highway. We had the situation 5 or 10 years ago with the center of town, and they after some arguments, the DOT kept all the crosswalks. They wanted to get rid of a whole bunch of them except the one on the top end of Cape Park that runs over to Hunters, which they eliminated. And since then, because I live right there, or have an office, huge amounts of people cross without crosswalks. But I think the DOT needs to know that we're sort of like Kennebunkport or someplace. You know, we're a tourist town, a small New England town. We're not on Route Highway 66 or anything, and we don't encourage long haul through traffic. Also, the DOT, over a period of years, has had multiple problems with I've said this in a number of emails. There have been two main proposals that they wanted to reroute 28 on the other side of Rust Pond to connect it to Center Wolfeboro, down where Christie's or 7-Eleven is. And in 1960, whenever it was, the largest town meeting ever held in Wolfeboro with everybody protesting they do that. Then the DOT wouldn't go away, and they came back in 1973 with another proposal which got shot down. Another proposal, more recent, is to put a big roundabout at Pickering Corners so they can accommodate tractor trailers, which would wipe out a lot of stuff. And then the longest one that I've found that dates back nearly a century is South Wolfeboro, where the DOT, or whatever it was called at that time, said this is completely untenable, the intersection there, and they posted a traffic warden there for a year. But as far as I know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think everybody in Wolfeboro proceeds in baby steps on some of these intersections like that, and they're not big problems. Although I can see someone in DOT who doesn't live there can consistently think that they can improve them.
And I just would say one thing about DOT, they do work on a state level and national level, and I think that's where, when you come down to our little level, they're trying to apply those standards, and that's what we talk about, this context-sensitive solutions. And I think what you said about the rumble strips, while they may be saving lives in other states, here, noise pollution is serious. Yes. And again, maybe in certain states you don't know it because you have so much noise you don't realize it. But we have something special here. And if someone, all of a sudden you're working in a garden and all, what the heck was that? That's disturbing. And it's something that we really should, because I hadn't thought about it, because you had asked me about the comment on the alternatives. I really hadn't thought about it much, because on one hand, I'd like to support DOT and their drives towards safety. They have a motto, and they're trying to eliminate all deaths on the highway. That's unrealistic, but they're trying, and they're using a lot of national standards. And the reason they use national standards is because all their money comes from the feds. Right. And the feds force you to use the national standards. Right. So when the feds are paying for the pavement that's coming downtown, they say you need to meet all ADA standards, and that's why we're ripping up those things. And if you have a mid-block crossing, you have to have a flashing beacon, which is why we have one down there. But at a certain point, we got to have the discussion and say, what's a really good context-sensitive solution? And I think that's why I think it's good when they can come up and talk, because talking in emails, or that's not going to get it done. I did also kind of, because we are getting to the point of, paving is going to occur, and the DOT is only going to paint the double yellow lines and fog lines. The town's responsible for the parking spaces and the crosswalks. So we're going to put the crosswalks back in as they are now, all these, and the same thing with on Center Street. We haven't heard back from them about they're taking the two out, but I think our plan is going to be to stripe them back in. And so I've taken that in an email today with that position. So we'll see what occurs.
I still think they should come here and hear our concerns. I think that what I saw is they did hear. They're still going to put in the strips, but they did hear the amount people are being woken up in the middle of the night by the noise, and they were explaining, the citizens, that coming up from Hannaford's, a lot of times the truck will move over to let people pass, and of course what do? You have to go out on the rumble strips. The same thing coming down into Gentry's Pit. And so these people are hearing this, and I think they heard that. I don't know what they'll do to solve it.
Well, I think people in Wolfeboro should understand that too, because you don't want to wake up one morning and all of a sudden start hearing it. Why didn't I know about this? So that's why it's a good opportunity. So let's try to combine the two and get them up here as soon as
So
possible.
Dave, and by the way, John McDonald deserves a shout out for writing a letter to the
With Jeb Bradley, who signed it.
He wrote a pretty long letter. It was fact-based. It wasn't emotional, which is, always good. It wasn't finger-pointing, which was even better. And it's kind of emblematic, I think, of what you want to do. So your request is that you want to ask New Hampshire DOT from the Board of Selectmen to come on up and visit and have a public hearing to talk about rumble strips and also to talk about the sidewalk situation.
Right. Because the sidewalks won't go away. And again, like we say, if they start taking those two, because next year they're going to overlay going
South
that
Main
way.
Street. Right.
And there's a request now from Old Mill Drive. I don't know if I saw your name on it, Brad. They want a crosswalk from Old Mill Drive across because they have some younger families here.
Right.
And DOT's first response is, well, A, we don't put a sidewalk if you don't have a receiving sidewalk. Right. And B, we have a 10-year project, we can look at it. But there is a request from the hospital to walk across to the, Clark. When you have the, especially now that we have the Thursdays with the farmers market.
Yeah, farmers market.
So they want to take out, and I'm thinking maybe we want to go the other way. Maybe we should have more because we really want to slow that traffic down. They say we can't. They got to have speed limits of 40, 30 miles an hour. I just came from a conference down in Newcastle. They have routes 1B and 1A, and they're 20 miles and 25 mile an hour. They have regulatory signs on state routes that are lower than what they're saying. So that community took control of their community, and however they did it, they broke the rules because they're telling me these are the rules. So I think, again, we might have to be a little bit disobedient and kind of stand up to DOT and say, here in Wolfeboro, we want to do things differently. And we want to have the ability that someone from Old Mill Drive can walk across and walk safely to the library. Sure. Or that we can walk across from, when someone has a lunch break, they can go across to the park and get a little fresh air there without having to dance traffic or walk 1,000 feet in the opposite direction. Because what they're really doing is saying they want to encourage jaywalking.
That's right. That was the part.
That's what I don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speed walking. Dodge.
I do want to build off of what Paul said. I had sent an email out to John McDonald, Jeb Bradley, and Edie Damaris, and John and Jeb signed this letter going out, and I appreciate them responding, and I thank them for doing it.
You do too.
I do too.
Yep.
So do we need to do a motion? How do we proceed here? Dave is recommending that we...
I think we do a motion so he has that backing up. Either you or I can move that.
Just we write a letter requesting a public hearing on these two things, and we'll get it out.
Yeah, public
Move that we,
hearing on the Board of...
I'll just say, town manager, write a letter to the New Hampshire Department of Transportation requesting a public hearing for two subjects. One is to discuss their plans and our plans for our sidewalk crosswalks. And second, to have a conversation to hear their plans and our plans in public hearing for rumble strips in our town.
Yeah, at that meeting...
Was that good? Is that okay? All right.
At that meeting in Alton, Linda did broach that subject with Mr. Cass from DOT. He was very approachable about coming to Wolfeboro to hold a meeting. I guess my first question for the board, would you want to hold this on a regularly scheduled meeting night, or would you want to have a standalone meeting for this?
Latter.
On a standalone meeting.
Latter, yeah.
Okay.
And it was the state of New Hampshire that came up with the context-sensitive solutions model, right? Yeah. Isn't it their program?
They brought it to DOT. So when I went, I saw it at DOT.
Yeah.
But just because they sponsored it doesn't mean they believe it.
Oh.
They only when it becomes to their favor. So when nice projects like walking projects or the PTE projects, or if they want it, but when it comes down to it, they always go to the Green Book and to the these big textbooks that apply to everything.
The standard model book.
So that's why I'm saying they didn't have time to do it, and they did a quick study and they determined, we got to eliminate these crosswalks.
So, Mr. Chairman, I put a motion on the table.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Motion is second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
Dave, when we redo Route 28, would we ever make it 28 feet wide?
Not coming in on South Main Street?
Yeah,
No.
if you put curbing in both sides, okay, because that would be a disaster, and that's why I'm asking that.
Well, we want a cross-section, I take that back, because we do want to have 4-foot bike lanes with narrower 10-foot travel lane, so it would be 28 curb to curb.
I think we need to make sure it isn't.
But it would be a speed limit of 25 miles an hour if I had my druthers.
Well-
No more than 30, so that they would not be able to put in the rumble strips.
I think we need to pay very close attention to this, and if
Yeah.
it is
Oh, absolutely.
28, we make it 27 and a half, whatever it is in that distance, so they don't have the opportunity, because that would be a disaster.
Well, if you put in bike lanes, you wouldn't get rumble strips, right?
No, you would, those are, yeah, so that's what
You
I'm thinking
probably
where.
would want rebel strips
But what we're
between the
saying is, we turn
driveway.
our back and the national standard is 28 feet, all of a sudden, boom, you might have them. You got to be careful. But the good news is the 10-year plan project is starting to work on, so I did hear from the project manager, so they are starting to work on it, so hopefully we can get some feedback and invite those people here, because it's kind of the part of that 10-year project. You know, a lot of this other stuff will come through.
Thank you, Dave.
Matter wants to speak.
Mike?
Mike,
Yeah,
Why not?
let you come up and speak on this. Sure, Mike.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael Hodder, Wolfeboro. I just point out to the board that Route 109 North from Goose Corner down to the Libby Museum, 28 feet wide right-of-way, 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. Prime candidate
Thank
for
you.
these rumble strips.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you for letting
That's
us
a good
know
point.
that.
That's a good point.
A long way with Clearwater Lodges, Piping Rock, a whole bunch of residences, plus Robin Acres, all going to be dealing with that noise.
That's a good point.
Yeah, good point.
Mr. Chairman, I just would like one point of clarification. When we attended that meeting in Alton, it was very heavily attended by the residents of Alton. There were numerous residents from Wolfeboro. And at points it did get rather contentious. I think Linda would agree with that.
Yes, they were angry.
I'm wondering if I can reach out to maybe the town moderator to try and moderate this meeting to keep it under control if it were to get to that point.
I think that'd be a great idea.
Fine.
I think that'd be a great idea.
Whatever we need to do to,
Okay, I'll make those connections and see if we can get this scheduled in the very near future.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, next discussion item, Bay Street public meeting discussion.
Yes, this one is a little long in coming, but we want to make sure we did it at the right time of the year, and we think it's very important that we take the same type of problem solving, the context-sensitive solutions. Sounds like a great idea. Let's get a nice sidewalk on Bay Street, and then we complete a nice walking loop. It meets kind of our goals, trying to expand a business district up Bay Street. We have beautiful views there. We have a lot of nice properties, but we have a lot of challenges. And I think what I wanted to do is, again, that's what we're looking for tonight, is to have a public meeting with all the stakeholders in which we would send out an invitation to everyone that's on there and get out on the newspaper and the webpage and word of mouth and through all the different committees to get the stakeholders in and ask them what are the problems, what are the needs of the stakeholders on Bay Street. And when I say that as well, the obvious ones are speeds. It's dangerous to be walking because there's no crosswalks. Okay. There's difficult right-of-way. We have a 40-foot right-of-way. We have topography issues where the slopes change off. We have utility poles that are real close on one side and then they go on the other side. So we want to identify all the problems and needs, but not just what I think, because I drive by there, but I don't live there. So we really want the people who own the property and live there to come in, tell us what their problems and needs are. And then from that, we want to get a consensus. These are the really things that this project needs to solve. And then that helps us form the problem statement. And then we want to do, what do we want this to be? What is our vision of Bay Street? What do we want it to look like? Do we want it to look like South Main Street? Do we want it to look like 28 and Center Street going up there? So we really got to think about that. And the people who live there also need to buy into that vision, because we're all going to have to work together to make this work. There's going to be some sacrifices. I talked to already Barry from the electric department about moving poles and what can we do there. Homeowners are going to have to work with us because there'll be some encroachments on the right-of-way and to get the slopes needed to put the sidewalks in. So I think this is really important, and if the board is agreeable, we had, working with the planning department, Matt, we picked the Monday, June 24th at 6:30 for this meeting. So I don't know if that fits with everyone here. Obviously, we'd love to have you there, but it's really more about the stakeholders and trying to get this process started. We did not do a detailed survey. This is another thing about the debate. We're going to use the maps we have in the can, which when I say tax maps, Google Earth, and we're going to supplement it with photographs showing all problem areas. And the idea would be we have a set of plans that you could pick out your property, you'd have a photograph showing it, and then we would have a work session with 3 sessions set up where people could come in and we could work on the drawings, we could talk, and then at the end of the meeting, we would kind of group and get a consensus of what the problems were. And from that perspective, after that first meeting, then we can set the engineer to try to come up with alternative solutions. And then we bring everyone back when we have solutions, and hopefully we get the buy-in.
So let me just make sure we are clear on it. It's going to be June 24th at 6:30.
Yes.
Okay. And you don't have a place here?
Yes, here at
Okay.
Town Hall.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've already going to set the room here, and
Yeah, I'm going to be at the chamber tomorrow morning. I just want to make sure I
that'd be great.
held in the right
And
place.
I'll get something to the chamber too by Friday. We'll have an official invitation going out to Mary and everybody.
No, I think that sounds like a great idea. Get everybody in, get the conversation started, and see how it all develops. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, so that's it. We're locked in on the 24th. Great.
Good. Thank you, Dave.
I think we need a motion out of the consensus is good for that, don't you?
I don't think so.
Okay. Next discussion, road upgrades revised plan.
Okay, so we had a discussion on this last month, and there was a little concern expressed by one of the selectmen. So I just wanted to revisit what happened and where we're at with the road upgrade warrant article. In last year in the planning, the intent was to do a lot of the work in-house to save money. As we submitted the $800,000 budget, we had specific projects on that list based on estimates that I would do in certain scopes of work. As we transitioned, we decided to bid out Pine Street because of the curb and drainage work there and the fact that we were overloaded and getting behind on maintenance. That project went out to bid and came in much higher than my budget, and that's kind of necessitated us to make a decision. My recommendation is we go ahead and complete Pine Street and the curbing and the sidewalk, and that's something that when we did present it, we did talk about the roadway being rebuilt and included the sidewalk, but in the actual language in the warrant article, it did say drainage and roadway, but didn't say sidewalk.
So Pine Street is our street. It's not a state street, is that
Correct.
right? And the scope of the, how much you had to do, that did not change?
Yes. Well, when originally I was looking at going to kind of just grind it and pave it and maybe replace some of it, and the curb and sidewalk was going to be kind of subbed out. So once we looked at it again with the engineer, and when we decided to bid it out, I looked at it again and said, geez, we really need to, the same situation, if you just grind and pave, you lose your curb review. The curbs are already bent out of shape and kind of a mess. So I was trying to make it cheap and fit within our budget, and realized, no, we're going to do it because we did a nice job with Center Street. Once Center Street is paved, it's going to look really nice. I think Pine Street needs to have that same straight curb, nice sidewalk, and a nice driving surface. So what we're going to do differently now, we're going to dig out 8 inches and put in 4 inches of gravel, 4 inches of pavement to get a nice crown and a nice drainage in addition to the drainage.
And how far up Pine Street, Dave?
It's going to go almost all the way to
Crescent Lake Ave.
Crescent Lake Ave? Okay,
Yeah.
thank
And then Crescent Lake Ave, we did an overlay there, so that's holding out okay. And then we will, I think, connect the sidewalks in a future year. Hopefully next year we'll come up with a design and see if that'll make the CIP list. So that's what this was about, basically kind of showing you, and then I kind of in the background I showed you where the prices came in, some higher, some lower. Asphalt prices again are higher this year, so that also hurt us. But we are scheduled to start paving mid-June with Frank Carroll.
I don't have any problem with everything except the sidewalk. I went and looked at RSA 32:3. Appropriate means to set apart from the public revenue of a municipality a certain sum for a specific purpose. This warrant article talks about roads and drainage system. There is nothing about sidewalks, and I cannot support spending any money on sidewalks. I know we had said it at the deliberative session. I know we put it in the voter's guide. I know we've gotten an oral opinion from town attorney, but I believe it's wrong. I disagree with attorney all the time, and I cannot support spending any money on sidewalks because the person who didn't see any of those walked into the voting booth, they would have voted for this warrant article for upgrading town roads and drainage systems. And other warrant articles in the past, when we've done sidewalk, the word sidewalk is there. So that's mine. I'm going to vote against the sidewalks. I'm fine with all the other parts of it.
Can I ask a question? If we paved the road and then went back and did the sidewalks, what happens to the total cost compared to doing it once?
Well, the difference...
And so let's just make, if I could, I'm sorry to interrupt you. So let's just assume the total cost today is $1. If we, to do the road and the sidewalks, would that $1, if we had to go back and do the sidewalks separately, would it go to another $1? Would it go up 5%?
You're not asking the question, because this curbing is the other part that's critical to this, because the curbing is related to the drainage. So are you included curbing? Because the curbing is a big expense. So yes, you wouldn't be able to, we would be hard pressed to do the project without doing the curbing. And if you did the curbing, it would look funny without having the sidewalk there. So the question is, if we just did the road now and came back later, the cost would escalate. Yeah, it would be more. It wouldn't be twice as much, but it would be a separate mobilization. You'd have half a project for a year now.
So more work,
Yeah, you'd have to mobilize.
more project work that would be at the expense of other projects.
Yep.
Because
the timing with curbing and paving, you got to, it's kind of.
I know. We only have a finite amount of resource, so you'd be doing that. And with respect to my colleague, if we, we said everything right, we put it in the voter's guide, we did all of that. I kind of am on the other side of the equation. I think I would be supportive of what you are proposing to do, which is to do it all now.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this too, and because the sidewalk and the curbing, as you just explained too, does relate to the drainage part of this too, because you're going to have your crown of your road's going to put the water on the sides there, your catch basin, frames and grates are going to be right up against the curbing there, and the curb is going to guide it into the drainage system that's in the road there. So that's an integral part of the drainage system that's got to go into the road. And to answer Paul's question a little bit there too, if you went and just did the road now and paved it out the full width of, say, if I don't know if it's 20-foot travel or 22-foot travel lane there, and you come back in next year, you will have to cut out probably about 1.5 feet of that new pavement you would just put down to be able to put your curb down, and then repave that back in. So you'd be ripping up something you just spent good money on the previous year. So it would cost more to do it later. So personally, I think I would lean towards going along with this recommendation and doing the whole project as we kind of talked about it at the deliberative session and everything there. So that's kind of how I stand on it. Dave Bowers, do you have anything you wanted to add? Dave, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think as far as the sidewalks go, I think that's something that, are we still on that subject?
Yes.
I can't hear 100%, as you know. I think that's something that was discussed at length with the Mental Health Association being there, new Boat Museum planning to be there. Oh, you're on Pine Street, okay. Pine Street, all right. No comment. It is Wednesday night, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I just think it's important that if we ask the voters to vote for something specific, that's what we do. And this is not what we asked. I had gone back and we started out, we just did road upgrades, and then in 2009 we added drainage because we were going to do drainage, and when we did Union and Laner Street, it was funds for drainage, road, and sidewalk upgrades. I feel I have an obligation to the voter. If we just said roadway and drainage, that I can't support sidewalks. So,
And
There it is in a
Jim,
nutshell.
could you tell us what the advice of counsel was? And because he, I guess, read you.
Yeah, so we had some conversations about this, Dave and I, initially, and I reached out to Attorney Puffer. He felt that a sidewalk, which is part of a municipally managed road, is inherently part of that same right-of-way, and that we are covered in that practice. I think Dave and I will sit here and say, yep, going forward, we probably will be putting the term sidewalk into the warrant articles if that is required. We did put it into the slide, which I know the voters didn't see, but the slide did read pave the road and sidewalk, which inherently means we had intended on doing that. So we believe that we're in good grounds here. And the other thing is we're going to have this beautifully done street, and we're going to have a sidewalk which looks absolutely terrible, and people are going to be walking on the roadway. So I also see it as a potential safety issue.
So I guess we should probably make a motion get a motion on the floor here and see how the board wants to proceed. Does anybody want to make a motion to start with?
You don't want me to.
Well, I'm not saying that.
I don't. So I guess I don't even know how to word it, so you guys help me with this. I would move that we proceed with the right word be reconstruction of Pine Street for the municipally managed portion, which will include the road, curbs, and sidewalk. And we do that inside of the 2019 budget. Did I do okay with that?
I think you want to say it under the road warrant
article.
Under the road warrant article, whatever the number is, under that road warrant article. Okay.
I'll second that to get on the floor for discussion. Do we have anything else we want to discuss on that? Okay. Call for vote. All those in favor of the motion to proceed with the Pine Street construction with sidewalks and Dave's recommendation of how to, make it fit into the budget, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Thank you. 3-1.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Okay. Other business. Do we have any other business for this evening? Committee reports. That with you, Paul?
Okay, thanks. Sorry about this. Three things. One, I've attended the police commission meeting. Number two is we held our first communications subgroup meeting with the cyanobacteria committee yesterday. We've had some follow-up meetings. We have some great volunteers, new faces from the town, which is great, who are stepping up to do that. That's causing me to have to understand whether our town's website and all that stuff we have in our technology is accommodating, and that'll be a process of discovery for the next few weeks. And I forget what the third thing was. I think I attended something with you, Linda, didn't I attend something? Maybe I didn't. I don't know. I had three things, but I
No,
can't
you
think
didn't
of
make that.
I don't know.
I'm
sorry. I'm sorry, folks. I can't think of my third thing, but it was important.
It'll come to you.
It'll come to me.
Hey, let's see. Last night I had a planning board meeting. We had one public hearing for a special exception on a wetlands crossing on South Main Street, and we had a Friends of Living Museum meeting the end of last month. And then obviously the various meetings we had in our town manager selection process we've been going through, that we've been meeting quite regularly on. That's what it was, Paul.
Our
Huh?
non-stop meetings.
That was it for me. Yep.
Alrighty, I went on the RIB, Rapid Infiltration Site visit with Dave Ford, the town manager, Tufton Borough Selectmen, and New Hampshire DOT. And we had most of our engineers there. It was very informative. I think members of Tufton Borough had a better understanding of what was happening at the RIB site. Do I think we changed people's minds? I don't think so, but I think they have a better understanding, and I'm really impressed with all the new lines and everything and the way we're being able to catch the water that used to be coming out of the side. We still have quite a bit of work still to do out there, but I enjoy going out there and seeing that every time. I went to an Energy Committee meeting. We're still waiting for the net metering policy to come in, and I think we're going to try to meet sometime after June 16th to take a look at that. That's an important document for that committee. I'm also working on the assessing subcommittee for the cyanobacteria. We had a meeting. We finalized the protocol. The protocol will go to the full cyanobacteria committee next Monday with the hope that it will come here to the Board of Selectmen on our June 19th meeting. And that's all I have.
And no committee meetings. I had a fair amount of interface with community citizens on various subjects, including budget. And I've been doing more work on Wolfeboro history to bring my records up to date in the past 25 years.
All right, thank you. Town Manager's report.
Yeah, I attended the Rumble Strip meeting in Alton. That was quite interesting. Also attended the RIB joint meeting with Tufton Borough and the engineering firms. That was quite the impressive site. Attended an Energy Committee meeting. Last meeting, the Wolfeboro Area Children's Center brought through a temporary event permit for the Fairyland Festival on July 6th. Within that, they neglected to establish a rain date, so they reached out to us and asked if they could attach a rain date to that, which is going to be July 7th. We approved that without any cause to follow anything further. We also have been reached out to by the First Congregational Church requesting permission to set up a table on their front lawn to sell bottles of water during the parade. We've authorized that. Brenda LaPointe wanted me to advise everybody that tax bills will be out by the 14th, so they are forthcoming.
Good.
As many of you are aware, we have been in the process of hiring a new finance director. The new finance director is on board now. His name is Troy Neff, and he will be here at the next Board of Selectmen's meeting with a budget report. Seems to be fitting in well, and he's making lists and checking things off, which is good. Question for the board with regards to the first meeting in July. That would traditionally be scheduled for July 3rd. Would you rather hold that on July the 10th, being the 4th is a holiday, or do you want to hold it on the 3rd?
I'd like to hold it on the 10th.
I would too. What do you, Paul?
I'm fine with that.
I'm easy either way.
Okay, so we will reschedule that meeting for July the 10th. And lastly, as I think you're all aware, but to reinform you, I will be on vacation. I've had a long scheduled vacation. I'll be leaving the 17th of June, and I won't be back until July the 5th. Matt Sullivan will be filling the role of acting town manager in my absence. And that's all that I have.
Dave?
One more comment. I had a meeting with Bill Dunlap, the executive director of the New Hampshire Historical Society, and we're planning to, 2 years ago we had a program in the Great Hall here of Wolfeboro history and so forth, and he would like to come here sometime, probably this summer when the vacation people here. I think we'd probably get a full room and give a program from the New Hampshire Historical Society tied into the state of New Hampshire and Wolfeboro, I'm going to work with him on that, and when he finalizes it, we'll make an application for a time. The place will be here, but make an application for the time, probably sometime before Labor Day.
Thank you, Dave. Questions from the press? You're good? Okay. Public input, limited to 3 minutes per person. You had your hand up first. Okay. All right, Suzanne.
I'm sure I'm going to insult Mr. Ford, and it's not meant to be, but I'm very upset with the changing of the warrant article regarding the road and the sidewalk. A warrant article is put up and posted and warn the people how much money and for what. And it's almost like you change the purpose. I know, town manager, that Mr. Puffer, according to what you said, it's legal that he can do what he's doing. However, it's something called good faith. When you stand before the deliberative session and tell the people what you're going to do for a specific purpose and how much money is going to be expended, that's the good faith that people vote yes on. You have let the people down by allowing this to be a shift of money, take away from another project somewhat to expand this project. It's almost like the project was premature. You try to do it cheap and you don't have it all together, and now you realize that something else has to be done to get more work accomplished. I'm not opposed to doing what you want to do, but you could just reissue this warrant article for next year and tell the people what you want to do, raise the difference in the money, complete what's on the list for 2019, and don't do this. It's very disappointing, very disappointing. It's like bait and switch, and I'm very, very upset about it.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Good evening again. Joe Haas from Gilmanton. I thank you for putting the part of what I said last time I was here in the minutes on page 14. I saw the internet version. And the first thing I want to say is it's H-A-A-S, 2 A's and an S, for next time.
Okay.
Please. And that's something new, that the tax bills are coming out the 14th instead of the 10th, I think was last time it was scheduled for. So you guys have some extra time, if you want, to contact the New Hampshire Municipal Association to try to get them to do that template. Because I've been trying, like I told you last time, I think. I can't remember everything I say. But the one town that did say they were going to do that was Salisbury, and that was last November. And I took it upon them that they would do it, and they didn't. It was the chairman, Selectmen, looked at the town administrator and said, would you please contact them so that we'll be the first one in the state to do that. But it wasn't a vote of all the rest of them, so the town administrator didn't do it. But I mean, us in Gilmanton, we pay $3,000 a year as membership, and you'd think that would be part of the membership fee, is to ask questions to get answers. So I'm just, you know, it would be nice for you guys to do that if you could. But do you need a petition to do that, to move it along, that somebody, in the old days, I remember it was 10 signatures, now it's like 25 you need?
I believe 25 for a signature for a petition, yes.
But that's mostly to put something on the warrant.
Correct.
But to move this along so that this could be asked, I mean, I'm just saying, I mean, I'm not going to pressure you, I mean, I'm just an outsider, but I just thought somebody in town might want to do that. I mean, get your money's worth, you know what I'm saying? but that's number one of three. And number two is the abatements. I came in late tonight. I guess you already approved all the abatements applications?
Correct.
But all meaning the ones that are listed, but that's not all of the total, right?
Just the ones that are listed there.
Okay, because I did talk with the assessor woman clerk, and then she had to talk with Todd
Haywood.
And she wrote me an email saying that she talked with him, saying that I can't get any information ahead of time, that the files are closed under 91A. And I'm saying that's wrong, that I would like for you to talk with her and or him to please open them up. Because I've gone to numerous other towns, and what they usually do, I don't ask for the whole file right away. I just say, well, could you put a PDF of the page 1, send me that to have just the contact information. And I don't have to give you the reason, but I give people the reasons why I'm doing this, is because I would like one of them to at least file an amendment to their application, putting in all this Tobin Valinsky stuff. The two of you attended that information session here, that there is that third option. I mean, I appreciate you putting it into the minutes, the Peter Laughlin book. You know, in my email, I put the actual page number down, which would be nice to have in the minutes too, so that somebody reading it could do some research. And also the RSA dealing with the information letter is RSA 76:11-A, Roman numeral 3. I mean, if you have that in there, they could understand what, you know, not just a letter, but a letter that's authorized by the statute that you can do if you want, but you don't have to. And I just thought it would be nice to put in there that you know, what you learned and what the taxes should be. Because you do put in the last line there, it's supposed to be paid for by the state. And then it comes to number 3 of 3 here, is this fall, I don't know if I told you this or not, but it was Ann Stelmach, the clerk of the Board of Tax and Land Appeals. She says within 30 days of you getting the tax bill in the fall, you have the right to appeal there for $65. I think I said that last time, that I'd be willing to pay the $65 just to put my money where my mouth is. And that's any tax rate set for the local school at anything other than 0, because the state is supposed to be paying for this. And I'm just saying that if you have an applicant on the abatement process, put that in, you all can decide that faster, like this summer sometime, which would be nice, because then this fall you could already have your decision. Yes, we're going to send it back if the DRA sends the rate other than what we don't want. I didn't say that right, but you know what I mean. And I was over in Brookfield, and the tax collector over there said in the old days, they used to go down. The tax collector and the deputy and the assistant or whoever, and the selectman maybe, I don't know, would go down to DRA and they'd work in the conference room there to set the tax rate. Now there's 4 people. I think Michelle Clark, wasn't that the woman?
I don't recall.
Or Jamie Yao, maybe?
I don't know.
There's 4 people that work down there. There's A to Z, you know, for the towns. Oh, you're W. Yeah, you're Wolfeboro. You're the Penny, right? Penny Touchette?
I don't know. I know DRA does set the tax rate for us, so that's about all I can tell you. So
yeah, but you have the power to contest it, and I'm saying that to contest it is if it's anything other than 0. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else with public input? Seeing none, I guess I would entertain a motion to, I guess we want to reconvene back into non-public tonight. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we go back into non-public session under RSA 91-A3 to be hiring.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, yes, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are we going to stay up here? Yeah, I'm going to use the wood.
I need to wait for the sign. Yeah.
piece of stuff. But, oh, I guess so.